I'm Chris Albrecht with The Spoon, and we're here at the Food IT conference put on by the Mixing Bowl here in San Francisco. And I'm speaking with Mr. Reese Schroeder. He is with Tyson Tyson Ventures?
Tyson Ventures.
Tyson Ventures is the official name for it. So, Tyson, people probably know from the chicken, but what does Tyson Ventures do?
So Tyson Ventures is a wholly owned subsidiary of Tyson Foods. It was set up to do corporate venture capital investing with the initial funding of $150 million. And we really got launched last year when we started making our first investments.
And what kinds of companies have you invested in so far?
So I'll start by saying that the areas of interest for us are really two strategic pillars. One is sustainability, which has four subcomponents: alternative proteins, food waste solutions, food insecurity solutions, and food safety. Our second strategic pillar we call the Internet of Food, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's the Internet of Things as it applies to the food supply chain. The other thing we look at under Internet of Food is disruptive business models. So to date, now with that sort of as the framework, to date we've made 5 investments. 3 of them in the sustainability pillar under the alternative protein category. One being Beyond Meat, which is a plant-based meat alternative. The company's based in Los Angeles here in California. The second one being Memphis Meats, which is based in San Leandro, California, also here on the West Coast. But the third and the most recent investment we made was in a company called Future Meat Technologies, which is also in the cultured meat space, but it's a very different company than Memphis Meats. So those are the first, those are 3 of the first investments we made. We've also made 2 additional investments. One is in a company called Tovala, which is a smart and connected oven.
Yep.
It's a company based in Chicago, Illinois. And then the 5th investment that we've made is in a company called Food Logic out of North Carolina.
Right.
And that investment is all about supply chain transparency. So we've been trying to hit the different pieces of our strategic pillars. More to come in some of the different sub-pillars.
Sure, right. So it's interesting, you're kind of covering the bases a little bit with your alternative proteins, because you've got your Beyond Meat, which is plant-based, and then Memphis Meat and Future Meat, which are both lab-cultured meats.
Correct.
So you're kind of, you're covering your bases there, as it were.
It's really about creating options for the consumer in the future. And, what we believe is that the protein space is going to continue to grow. All the data suggests that. And you combine that with the fact that we're going to have 10 billion people to feed by the year 2050. Having these kinds of solutions we think is very important. And, it's, for us, these alternative proteins, it's an and proposition, not an or. We think there's plenty of room for all.
Now, there's been a ruckus over what to call lab-grown meats. There's been, like, the Cattlemen's Association talking about what's beef. Have you come across that yet in the poultry space? Is there a poultry association that is starting to make noise about what is and what isn't chicken?
Not that I'm aware of, but
okay.
I'm kind of staying out of that part of the discussion.
I understand.
I haven't heard of it yet.
I understand. And it's interesting, your investments in Tovala and Food Logic speak to the supply chain part, because Tovala also has the meal kit part that goes with the oven.
Correct.
So you can, you order the oven and then you order the food that goes with it. And so that gets back to kind of some of the sub-pillars that you were talking about before.
Yeah, and actually you could argue that Tovala, for example, really addresses food waste, because the meals that come with it are proportioned, so there's not a lot of waste left. They're actually prepared meals, so it's very little prep is required.
Yeah.
You basically scan a barcode on the box, put it in the oven, and about 15 minutes later the meal is perfectly cooked. And one of the interesting things about the technology is that it cooks the main entree and the sides simultaneously, and they both come out perfectly.
Yeah, they're par-baked before they're sent, so that they all come together. You pull them out of the oven at the same time. Yeah.
And the other thing I'd point out, though, is you don't have to, buy the meals. There's actually a growing list of recipes and things you can do outside with the app.
Yeah.
And in fact, my wife has been experimenting with some different things.
So, as an investor, where do you think there is too much attention or too much money going into right now, and where isn't there enough?
It's a very tough question, but I'll throw it out and say there's certainly a lot of attention and a lot of money going into the cultured meat space.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not sure I can tell you it's too much, but there's certainly a lot of attention there.
Well, especially the cultured, because they've got to get the price down. They've got to get the technology. That's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to say it's too much, but
Sure.
Certainly there's a lot of energy, attention, and dollars going into that space. Another space that I see a lot of companies and a lot of dollars getting invested in is in the food safety space. Mm-hmm. Not surprising. It's a critically important area. It's a space we're going to definitely make some investments in, it doesn't surprise me. And then I see there's some emerging areas that starting to see a lot of activity in as well. Like the two that immediately come to mind for me are the personalized nutrition space. Starting to see a lot of activity there. And then automation, like we heard here today.
Sure.
I'm seeing a lot of different companies pop up, and so I think it's it's an exciting future in this space.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention. So you're looking at sort of the transparency and food safety. Food Logic is piloting a blockchain program. Is that another kind of technology that you guys? Do you think the blockchain is overhyped or underhyped at this point? In terms, you see a lot of people talking about like experimenting with it. But it's very nascent.
So, and again, this is my personal opinion.
That's fine.
I believe the blockchain, is for real. It's going to happen, and we need to participate in it. And that's why, Tyson has, a couple of different initiatives. They've been involved with IBM in a blockchain initiative, and we're, working with Food Logic as well. We think it's critically important.
So when you, it's creating this group is very forward thinking of Tyson. It's for a company that's been around for a long time. Yep. Sort of, is it sort of, what's that relationship like? They just kind of leave you alone and just go.
No, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say that at all. I mean, first of all, I think it's really great the support we're getting from the senior leadership of Tyson, including investing in some what many perceive as disruptive technologies. A lot of companies talk about investing in disruptive technologies, but they're really investing in things that are disrupting somebody else. Here, I think there's been a lot of courage in doing plant-based and cultured meat investments, but we're getting very, very strong support from the executive leadership team at all levels. We have an opportunity to meet with them from time to time, and including the CEO, and I would say that that support and visibility is essential for our success.
So understanding kind of the pillars you laid out before, what are some areas that are just of personal interest to you? I mean, we talked about food safety, but are there other things that you are personally interested in seeing, like you want to see, you're excited to meet companies in that space?
Oh, sure. And I kind of touched on it already. So, I was with Motorola for 28 years, and I am the gadget guy, through and through. So, I'm very interested in this whole automation space, robots, drones, and how they play into everything from, food delivery to food making, that's a space that's always going to, really get my attention. And I'm also, I would say I'm also, just interested as a consumer in all these new technologies that are there to reduce the time to detect, any kind of bad actors in the food chain.
Sure.
I think that's really important, and so I'm really anxious and to meet these companies and really see everything that's out there. I'd say those are some interesting things. We're seeing some wild things too, and again, I'm a gadget guy. Someday will food be printed? 3D printing? Absolutely convinced that's going to happen. Those things excite me.
Have you noticed any difference between the entrepreneurs in this food tech space and maybe the ones that you interacted with when you were at Motorola?
That's a great question. The space as a whole, is newer, and I think that I've run into more first-time entrepreneurs doing what I do, but we're also running into some really great ones. So I think that different focus, but it's like any other space. There's going to be great ones that are going to rise up. They're going to make a lot of money for their investors, and they're going to be great strategic partners for companies like us.
What's one bit of advice you have for companies that are looking to pitch you?
Great. Thank you for that question, actually. One of the things I always counsel entrepreneurs on is do some research on the corporate you're pitching to. Get some background. Don't give the generic pitch. Come in with a little bit of a tailored pitch and show that you understand the business, what they do.
Yeah.
And you understand how your company could strategically interact with them and be, kind of 1 + 1 = 3. You'd be surprised how many times over the years, this goes back before my days at Tyson, where a company will even come in sometimes with the competitor's name on the cover sheet of their presentation. Bad move. But that would be my best piece of advice.
Do your homework. All right, well, Reese, this has been fascinating. This is Reese Schroeder. He is with Tyson Ventures. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, too.